Hey, welcome back. And if you're happening on this channel for the first time, welcome. It's good to see you. Now, today I have a special video for you. If you are new to this stereo system setup thing, you're thinking about setting up a new stereo system and all of that, this video is for you, because today I want to show you how to set up, just a simple, uncomplicated audio system, just showing you the basic stuff in terms of connections, the stuff that you need, and the stuff, or should I say the things that you need to know. All right, so welcome. This video is probably going to be a bit long, so relax, grab a cup of your special drink as we get into this. All right, so the stereo system thing, I've been in this thing for many years now. Nothing high-end, nothing uber expensive, just me putting together whatever I can find in terms of, affordable components to create something that I can really sit and enjoy, something that is beautiful for my listening pleasure, if you know what I mean. All right, so like I said, today I want to show you how to set up a basic system. Now, what I'm going to be used for this kind of, should I say, demo or teaching process is a small amplifier. But before we get there, let us, step back a little bit and just kind of think about the products that we need, or the products that you're going to need, the gear pieces that you're going to need to set up your system. All right, so let's think about it. The first thing, one of the first pieces of gear you're going to need an amplifier, right? You're going to need an amplifier, right? So that's number one. You're also going to need speakers, okay? You will also need a musical source. And when I say musical source, I'm referring to something like a turntable, something like a CD player if you're still spinning discs, something like a music streamer. Music streamers come in all forms and sizes these days. You're also going to need cables. You're going to need speaker cables, and you're going to need signal cables. All right, those are some of the products that you're going to need to kind of set up your, to get things going, so to speak. So let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about each item in a little bit more detail. We spoke about amplifiers earlier, and what is the main purpose of an amplifier actually? Before we get to all these connections and thing, what's the main purpose of an amplifier? I think, this is not official now. This is just my definition. The main purpose of an amplifier is to amplify the audio signal. You're inputting an audio signal from your source component into this amplifier. And like I said, your source component could be a CD player, a turntable, a streamer, something like that. A tablet, a laptop. You're inputting this signal into that amplifier, and the purpose of this amplifier, the main purpose I should say, is to amplify that signal so you can get something satisfying, a satisfying signal to listen to, right, from your speakers. All right, amplifiers also act as switches. For example, an integrated amplifier. And when I say a switch, in the case of an integrated amplifier, it has numerous inputs on the back, plethora of inputs for CD. Let's back up a little bit. You can have analog and you can have digital inputs, right? Now today, for this little demo here, I have a small amplifier here, and as you can see, this has quite a few inputs on the back. All right, I chose this little amplifier not because it's the best, but it's adequate for what I want to teach you today, for what I want to show you today. So let's get into it. All right. Before I touch on all the connectors, I was saying that the amplifier acts as a switcher, meaning that you can switch from one input to the next. You can switch from CD to turntable to maybe a streamer. You get the gist, right? Just using your remote or probably a knob on the front of your receiver, you can select different inputs, and that is really what I meant when I say it acts as a switch. All right. Some of the amplifiers coming out these days, they also act as a one source in terms of amplifying the signal and also acting as a musical source, so to speak. Take for example, these streaming amplifiers which are getting so popular these days. Many of them do come with streaming abilities built inside, right in the box. So basically all you need to add is just speakers. It amplifies the signal. You can stream your music from the internet, whether it be Tidal or Spotify or whichever music service you need. You can do that. So I think those are the main three purposes of an amplifier right now. Just to amplify your signal, to act as a switch or an input switch, and for the more newer high-end amplifiers, they also act as a source, so that you can you can play your music straight through them without having to connect an external source, so to speak. You can stream from them. All right, so that's an amplifier. And before I move on to the next item on the list, which are speakers, I just want to show you some of the inputs on this amplifier that I have here. All right, so here you have your speaker outputs, and these are banana plug connectors. Here, this is a subwoofer out, and what this allows you to do is to connect a subwoofer to the system if you so desire, right? Because I like to use a subwoofer because it does give me the ability to kind of enhance the bass, to enhance the low end, if you know what I mean. All right, so that's a subwoofer out. Here, the red and the white RCA connectors here. These are for analog inputs, right? These are analog inputs. Okay, so you could connect something like let me just give you an example here. I have a cable here. So these are basic analog connectors, right? So you hook up the red to the red here and the white to the white, to the white. And in this case, this one is terminated with a mini jack. So from this I could plug it into my phone or a laptop if they do have a this kind of headphone jack, or a tablet. All right, so this is an analog connection. All right, the next input on this is a digital input, and this is a coaxial digital input. It uses an RCA connection, but it's actually a digital input. Here, this is an antenna, because this have a little bit of Bluetooth thing going on. It does have some Bluetooth. It has Bluetooth built in, and Before I move on, just lest I forget, this coaxial connector is a digital input. Many CD players these days have these digital, have those digital outputs. Here, this is an optical input here. And going back to CD players, you will find CD players or other pieces of gear which has an optical out. You would connect it to this. All right. Let me show you what an optical cable looks like. This is an optical cable. This is just one end. And what the optical cable does, it allows you to transmit an audio signal using light pulses, right? So that's the main purpose of an optical cable, right? And you'll find those on the back of CDs and on other digital media players or things like that. Further down this end, down here, we have a PC actually it's a USB input, right? This is a USB input, and this is also another digital input. This allows you to hook up a tablet or a laptop or a phone to this input. If you intend to use the DAC inside of this amplifier. And if you're new to this thing, you may be wondering, what is a DAC? A DAC is really an acronym for, it's spelled DAC, and that's an acronym for digital to analog converter, right? So if an item outputs if a piece of gear outputs a digital signal, whether it be your CD or your streamer, if it outputs a digital signal, you input that digital signal into this, and the DAC inside this would output an analog signal, because speakers inherently can play back a digital signal. I'm talking about the electrical signal now, all right? So that signal has to be converted by your DAC, whether it be an external DAC or a DAC built into your amplifier, like this one. It has to be converted to an analog signal before your speakers can understand it, before your speakers can actually play it back. All right? The next item, the next piece of gear on the list that you're going to need speakers. All right? That's by default, unless you're going to be using headphones. But for the purpose of this little demo today, for what I'm teaching, you're going to need speakers. So there are a couple of things to consider, when you're choosing speakers. What kind of speakers do you prefer? Do you prefer bookshelf speakers? And I have two here. I have a pair here. Now this is a pair. This is this one over here. But I'm just going to show this up here. So this is a bookshelf speaker, right? Another name for calling bookshelf, they also call stand mounts. But I guess they were called bookshelf because people would put them on a bookshelf back in the day. But not so much anymore. People are more or less buying speaker stands now, or mounts to put them on. That is how I run my system, right? So this is a bookshelf speaker, all right? So that is something to consider. Are you going to need a pair of bookshelf speakers, which are much, they are much smaller. They take up less space, and they just have a smaller footprint, so to speak, right? Or are you going to need floor standers or tower speakers? These speakers would be sitting on the floor. They're much taller, They produce a bigger sound because obviously in many cases the drivers are bigger, produce deeper bass and all of that. So, the choice is yours. Are you going to use bookshelves or floor standers? That's the question. And in terms of the main purpose of speakers, which is, obvious, is to produce sound, right? The main purpose of speakers is to produce sound. And, you could go down the rabbit hole of what kind of speakers to get in terms of the ohms or the resistance and the power rating and all of those kind of stuff. But we won't touch on that today. We just want to show you how to set up the system. Right? So speakers, right? Bookshelves or floor standers. All right? The next thing you may need, it's not a matter of may. You will only not need these if you have an all-in-one box. So the next pieces of gear you're gonna need is a musical source, or two, or three, right? In this case, your musical source could be a CD player. Now this is a Blu-ray player. These days I still spin a couple of discs, and what I do, I've been using Blu-ray players to spin my CDs these days because I find them to be adequate for the few discs, the few CDs that I have. I will not go out and buy a new CD player right now, but that's up to you. If you feel if you're deep into still in the art form of playing disc, then it's probably best to get a dedicated CD player because there are advantages. So you're going to need a musical source. One musical source could be a CD player. Another musical source could be a turntable. If you're into vinyl, obviously you're going to need a turntable. So a turntable could be another source. Another source could be something like a phone, right? On your phone, we have all these kind of apps, streaming apps, Spotify, Tidal, just to name two. So this could be a source. This phone has a USB connector, and it also has a headphone jack. So I could connect to my amplifier via any of those outputs. All right. Another source that you could use is something like a dedicated streamer, right? And basically what that does is just to pull in an audio signal from the web, from the server of going back to, say, Spotify or Tidal again, or whichever streaming service you use. The main purpose of that is just to bring in that stream to your amplifier, right? So those are some of the the different kind of music sources that you could implement if you're thinking of setting up a stereo system. A streamer, a turntable, a CD player, or maybe a phone or a tablet, or your laptop, It's up to you. Okay, let's move on. The next pieces of gear you're going to need to kind of, make sure that you can put everything together, you're going to need signal cables, right? Now, depending on the amplifier that you have, that may kind of determine, the signal cables that you're going to need. Depending on the amplifier, depending on how many sources you're going to use, and the kind of sources will kind of determine, I should say, the signal cables that you're going to need, right? So some of the signal cables that are available today. For example, HDMI. Now HDMI, when you think of HDMI, you tend to want to think more so about a video, but an HDMI, it's a high definition multimedia interface, and it carries both audio and video. Now, a lot of people are doing, just to deviate a little bit, a lot of people are doing a 2-channel setup these days for their TV. And what HDMI does, it would connect from your TV to an amplifier that has what is called ARC or eARC. And you would use your TV remote to kind of control the volume of that amplifier, where the HDMI coming from the TV is connected to. So it carries, it's carrying an audio signal in that case. I should mention that HDMI is a digital cable, right? Another cable you might need, depending on what your amplifier can accommodate, you may need an HDMI cable. I'm sorry, not an HDMI, a USB cable. What this allows me to do is to connect to a laptop, or using a little adapter on this end, I can connect to a phone or a tablet using a little USB-C adapter, right? This is also another digital connection, right? So that's it for USB. Another piece of signal cable, and I have alluded to it before, is an optical cable. If you're using a CD player like this, or a player like this which has an optical output, you would connect your optical out from the back here into the optical input of your amplifier, right? I don't think I need to connect it, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Let me see if I can get it in here. With some of these things, you kind of have to orient it just one way to make sure that it goes in. There it is. Okay. Right. So that's an optical cable, and that's another digital connection. So going back, in terms of digital connection, we have HDMI, we have USB, and we have an optical cable, right? And those are all digital connections. In terms of an analog connection, you may use something like this. Okay, this is just for left and right. Okay, and if I decided not to use an optical out from this player here, what I would do, I would connect. You would make sure that you're connecting to the right outputs here, and they're all color coded, left and right out. This is an analog output, and you would go into the analog input of the amplifier. Right? Can you see that? And this is also another analog connection. It on one end you have left and right RCA. On the other end you have just a mini jack. And so you could output a signal from your phone or anything that has this mini jack out to the left and right input of the amplifier. So those are analog connectors. Now this amplifier also has a subwoofer out. For the subwoofer, you're going to also need an analog cable, because it's an RCA end. and you would connect. I think it's best that I just lift it up and show it to you. This is the subwoofer out, and you would just connect from the sub out into the, and this end would go to the back of your subwoofer. We're going to go through all of this again. The final piece of gear you're going to also need, final pieces I should say, you're going to need speaker cables. Now, speaker cables is, this can be really a hot button issue, a hot button topic. Should you buy high-end speaker cables? Should you buy, ready-made speaker cables with the ends already terminated? Should you buy, your own wire and strip them yourself? And, attach your connectors to them? Is one brand better than the other? Does the thickness of the cable matter? How thick should it be? It's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down into when it comes to speaker cables. So, I really don't want to go down into that rabbit hole today, guys. So let's put it this way. Just to keep it simple, I'm just gonna just give you a couple of tips. This is these are two pieces of speaker cables, right? One is thicker than the other. Okay. What I like about this one, which is I just purchased a roll of this. I think it's about 100 feet from Amazon to kind of redo my home theater. And you may be saying to yourself, you're using this skinny cable to connect your home theater speakers. Guys, listen to me. For my little setup here, I don't need anything thicker than this. And what I like about this is that it allows me to see the negative and the positive on the wire just by looking at the wire. One side is red for positive, one side is black. Okay, there's no need to guess. That was part of the bonus for choosing this cable, right? No need to guess which side is positive or negative, right? On the other hand, this is a thicker piece of cable, but it's difficult to determine which side is positive and which side is negative, right? So you have to develop you'll have to, or should I say, in my case, I had to develop a way to kind of determine what side will be positive and what side will be negative. Now, on most of these cables that are not red and black, like this one is, most of them do have some writing. It may mention the speaker gauge, but they do have some writing along the wire, just on one side. And I would use that side to determine, I'm going to use that side for the positive terminal, and the side without the writing will be the negative terminal of the cable. So this do have writings on this side. It's going to be hard for you to see, but right along here, straight for the entire length of the cable, there's some writing on it. Just talking about the speaker gauge and all of that, the cable gauge and all of that. So that's one way. And that is something to keep in mind if you're buying cables. Right? So another thing you're going to need to know or to figure out when it comes to cable, how are you going to connect your cables? Are you going to connect your cables using the bare wire? Or are you going to connect your cables using some terminals connected to the ends here, like banana plugs? For me personally, I love using banana plugs, not only because they look more professional, but basically because it's a much quicker connection, right? And I have I have just a basic pair of banana plug here. These are old. I've had these for years. So this is a pair of banana plug. These are older. You may also notice that one side is red, or what should I say? One is red and one is black. So if I'm gonna say use this speaker wire here for my connection, the side that I determine, the side that I kind of predetermine that I'm going to use for the positive, I would connect the red one to it, right? And of course the other one would become the negative side. Okay. Now I won't go into the nitty-gritty of how to connect these today, because this is fairly simple. It is something. This is a no-brainer. To get these on, it's a no-brainer. All right. So like I said, I like using banana plugs just because they are fairly easy to use. These are called spades, and this is just another variation. But the difference between the banana plug and the spade is that the banana plugs, let me just show it to you. The banana plugs push straight into the terminal, right? You push them in just like that. Hold it up so you can see them. Yeah, basically you just push them in. Okay. Right? And so quick connection, quick disconnect, right? Now with the spade, you kind of have to loosen this and put the spade up in here. I hope you're able to see it. I'm just going to switch to my other camera so you can see better what I'm talking about. Yeah, so with the spades, you would just loosen these and you would push this spade in and tighten, right? Where's my other spade? Now these, I'm just using this little amplifier for as a demo, because right now these terminals are too close to use spade on them. So basically, you put them, you loosen these, and you push the spades in and tighten, right? And of course your speaker wires will be already connected. All right. So this is how you use spades. All right. So those are two options you can go to, but like I said, I prefer using these kind of connections because they are quick. You can make a quick connection or a quick disconnect, right? Back in the day, what we used to do, we would strip down the speaker wire as much as we needed, and what we would do, we would just wrap the speaker wire around the speaker terminal. Just wrap it around, and then we would tighten tighten it on the binding post, right? We'll just wrap it around, loosen, and we would just tighten, just tighten it on the binding post, right? But me personally, I don't really like this kind of connection, because I'm always worried that I'm going to have a short. Speaker wires are going to touch each other and touch each other, and I'm going to get a short. So just to prevent me from damaging my amplifier, I would rather not wrap speaker wires around the binding post, right? Right. So that's 3 ways in which you can connect your speakers. So back to the issue of speaker cables. Don't get down into the rabbit hole of speaker cable. Just go to the store, your electronics store. If you can get maybe 14 or 16 gauge cable, if you're thinking of stripping your cable, that is, but 14 or 16 gauge is fine. And if you don't know what the gauge mean, gauge is the terminology that is used to denote the thickness of the cable. Now keep this in mind. The lower the number, the lower the speaker gauge number, is the thicker the cable is, right? So a 10 gauge cable is thicker than a 16 gauge cable, all right? It's kind of antiquated, I know, but you have to keep that in mind. So the lower the number, the lower the speaker gauge number, is the thicker the cable, right? Like I said, a 10 gauge cable is much more thicker than a 16 gauge cable, right? Now for my purposes, I'm okay with anything from 16 and down. I'm happy, right? Depending on what I'm doing. Okay, depending on the application. So speaker cable. So we talk about the sizes and yeah. So I just want to show to you. I have some pre-connected cables here. Pre-connected, is that a word? But what I'm saying is that on these I already have the banana plugs connected. So these I kind of did these in advance, and these are much more premium banana plugs, much nicer. The difference between these, the major difference is that you can see the red and black, that these are red and black. With these, they do have some denotation on them, like here. There's a print around here in red, and there's some print or lettering, I should say, around this one in black. So this is how you would determine your negative from your positive. All right. And if you're new to this negative and positive thing, let me just break it down quickly for you. The back of the the speaker, the back of your speakers do have these connectors here. One is red, which is positive, and one is black, which is negative, right? So when you are doing your connections, you will just kind of match them up. If you make a mistake by connecting one correctly, and you connect the other one incorrectly, you're going to have what is called phase or timing issues, where the speakers are not going to play back in unison. When the driver in your one speaker is moving forward, the other one is moving backwards, and vice versa. And this is where you kind of get a lot of distortion and bad stereo imaging, and your system will just not sound right the way it should sound. Okay, so speaker cables, guys, don't get caught up too much with the speaker cable. If you watch some of these high-end shows online, like for example, like say the Munich Audio Show or but in any case, you go into some of these websites and you see the cables, man, that that are connected to some of these amplifiers and the size. Some of these cables are not even allowed to be placed on the ground. They have to be suspended. Oh my goodness. Some of these, man, this cable thing can be a contentious issue. That's all I'm saying. And you can go from a couple of dollars on cables to thousands and thousands of dollars on cables. All right. And of course, people are going to, advocate why this cable is better than this one because, for whatever, ray, blah, blah. All right. So that's speaker cable. And of course, you're going to have, to connect your system, you're going to have to make sure you have the proper length of cables and everything to go with your system. All right, to kind of determine how far you want to place your speakers away from the amplifier. All right, so we went through everything about what you need and why you need them and that kind of stuff. Now, I'm just going to go over the connections again because this is really the meat of the matter. All right. And like I said, I'm using this small amplifier here because this amplifier is good enough. This amplifier have most of the connectors that you would find on a modern high-end amplifier. I'm not talking about XLR terminated connections now because this is just a micro thing. But for the purpose of this video, this little amp has all the necessary and the more common connectors that you would find on most modern pieces of audio gear. All right, so let's do it. So let's go ahead and make some connections now. All right, I mean, you kind of get the idea before, but I'm just going to go through the whole setup again so that no stones are left unturned, so to speak. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to connect, we're going to assume that we have a laptop. We're going to assume that we have a CD player with digital and analog out. We're going to assume that we have a turntable. We're also going to assume that you have a streamer, that kind of stuff. All right, so let's do this, as one of my favorite YouTuber would say. Let's start with something like a phone, right? A phone or a tablet or a laptop. Okay, now for a laptop or a phone, you're going to need a USB cable, or you're going to need an analog RCA to mini jack. Okay, so one of these. You can use, like I said, a USB cable or an analog to mini jack. Now for this application, I'm going to assume that I'm using a laptop, and I'm going to connect my USB cable here coming from my laptop into the USB connector of this. Right now, this connector can also support, connecting to my phone. If I can get, my phone is a USB-C connector, so I could get a USB to USB-C connector for this end, and then I would plug the USB-C end into my phone or into my tablet, and go straight into this. All right. All right, so that's one source component. I could also connect my phone or laptop or a tablet if they have a headphone out using a cable like this. This has a mini jack to RCA, and basically what I would do, I would connect this to the headphone jack, and I would go straight into the left and right of this, the analog inputs of this this amplifier. Right, so that's another option. If I am implementing a CD player into the system, I could use an optical cable or I could use analog cables. All right, now for the optical, let's say this is your standard CD player. You would plug your optical cable into the optical output of this optical out. If you're using if you want to use a digital connection. If you're not using a digital connection, if you're going to use an analog connection, then you would plug connect the left and right out using the analog cable from the CD player, right? Because most CD players will give you both options, right? And you would connect the ends. You would connect these to the just like we did before, the left and right input of the amplifier for the analog connections. Sorry. And if you're using a digital connection, of course you're going to go into the digital connection of the amplifier. Right, so digital to digital, analog to analog. All right. This amplifier also has one more digital input, and like I mentioned earlier, some CD players do have a digital output called a coaxial digital output. Now it has the RCA looking end here, but it's really a digital connection, right? And you would need a cable. You would need a cable like this. So you would connect. You would connect to that, and you would connect the next end, the other end, to your CD player output. So, so in some cases, a CD player or some, digital player will give you the option of probably 3 different ways to connect, right? Optical digital, coaxial digital, and analog RCA. All right. Okay. The next thing you might want to connect, if you decide to implement it in your system, is a subwoofer. I have a small subwoofer on the floor there, but a subwoofer is pretty straightforward. You don't have to buy a huge, massive subwoofer. You just need something that is, depending on your room size, something just to bring out the low end of your, say you're using bookshelf speakers. Like in my case, I use bookshelf speakers, right? So in my case, I just need a subwoofer that can bring out the bass, the bottom end, right? Because the thing about bookshelf speakers, many of them are quite good, to be honest. But sometimes you still need a sub to kind of get down to those lower octaves, those lower bass levels, right? So that is when you would implement a subwoofer, right? So here's a piece of cable. This is fairly long. For us, adequate enough. It's about 10 to 15 feet. Just enough to put your subwoofer away out of sight, so to speak. And so this amplifier has a subwoofer out here. You can see, do have a subwoofer out, and you would connect your cable to that, and you would connect your next end to your subwoofer input, right? And of course your subwoofer is going to have a volume control at the back. At least, basic sub will have some kind of input gain on the back. The thing about sub, they do have their own amplifiers, right? Because the signal coming out of the subwoofer cable is not really amplified. So, you're gonna need a sub with its own amplifier, right? And in many cases, most subwoofers in the market are like that. They do have their own amplifiers, right? Okay, so those are the so these are all the connections. The more common connections are, I'm going to say, source connections or input connections on a more modern amplifier, right? Especially an integrated amplifier, right? The term integrated means that it has a variety of inputs, right? So this is a small integrated amplifier, right? I'm just going to hold it up to you. This is a small integrated amplifier. So now that you have connected your laptop, you connected your CD player. The challenge with using something like this is that while it has most of the connectors that you would need, it may not have enough, right? So in this situation, a little amplifier like this, I think I could connect everything that I want to connect to it, because if I have an amplifier and it have all these connectors, all of these connectors, right? This would be quite adequate for my needs, right? This would be quite adequate for my needs. I would connect my laptop here, or my tablet. I would use the digital to connect my CD player. The coaxial I would not need unless my CD player does not have a digital connection, right? For the analog connection, I would connect my turntable there, right? And then I also have my subwoofer out. Okay. Now the last connections we are going to make are our speaker connections. For the right speaker, you would connect to your right terminal, right? And you're going to ensure that the polarity of your speaker is connect. For example, when I say polarity, try not to make the mistake of connecting, putting the red into the black terminal or the positive into the negative terminal and vice versa. This will kind of mess up your music. And then for the next speaker, you would do the same. Red to red and black to black. And so from the amplifier, you would observe polarity again, and you would connect to the red to red and black to black, right? So everything is connected, and I have the other amplifier, other speaker over here, and you do the same thing. All right, so that's how you would do it. So we can assume then that you have made all the necessary connections. Now the last thing you're going to do now, you're going to power up your system. Now this amplifier is not connected to power, because basically I just wanted to show you how to make the connections. So the last thing you would do, you would power it up, and when you power up, keep your volume down to minimal level. Now if you're going to play a turntable, you would probably select the analog input, or if you're going to play something from your laptop, you would select USB. This amplifier does come with a remote, so you could use the remote to select your input. And if you're going to connect to, say, your CD player, you would connect to for the input you would select optical, right? Now don't turn up your system until, just turn it just a little, maybe quarter way, so you can hear some sound coming from the speaker, because you don't want to turn it out and then you're on the wrong input, and then when you actually select your correct input, you end up blowing your speakers. That's not good, right? So keep your volume down low to about quarter. Ensure that you select the correct input. You select the correct component that you want to play or listen to, right? And then you are gonna adjust your volume accordingly, right, for that input. All right. For the subwoofer, you can also adjust the volume of your sub, and and start listening. Okay, so this is the final setup, guys. And while this was not a review on that little amplifier, the little amp was just basically a teaching tool, because it has all the like I said, all the more common inputs that you would find on most modern amplifiers. Apart from XLR, a connector, a balance output or input, because that is, it's quite small. The only other thing it's lacking, it's streaming capabilities. But that's not a problem, because I'm going to show you how I stream using this little amp. So this is my rack. All right, so let's talk about it in a little bit more detail. So on the rack here, I have my turntable. All right, sitting on the underneath the turntable is my Yamaha integrated amplifier, and that's a network amplifier with a built-in DAC inside. So that's my everyday listen. And that was not a part of this whole video, but this is where it lives, so I thought I would just leave it there. All right, so this is the amp I used for the demo in the video, right? Just to show you how to make your connections. And it is sitting on top of my CD player, and the CD player is sitting on top of a equalizer spectrum analyzer. It's a Technics. From time to time, I would, integrate some analog stuff into my digital system, and this is one of them. This equalizer, I don't actually use it for to equalize or to modify my audio per se. It has a spectrum analyzer built in. And so what I do, I feed a signal into it, and I love to see the spectrum, the dancing spectrum moving as the music plays. You know, I love to see a musical representation of what is going on, you know, in the system. So that's why it's there. Here I have my phone, and the phone is connected via USB to the amplifier, as mentioned in the video. And what I did, I got an adapter connected to the USB, so USB-C adapter, which in turn is connected to the phone. So from this, I can play music streams. I fired up Spotify earlier and I was listening some music. It's going straight through the amp. Over here is the subwoofer. That amplifier had this amplifier has a subwoofer out, so it's connected to the sub. And for left and right, I'm using a pair of Martin Logan bookshelf speakers, and they're sitting on top of speaker stands. All right. I went through and I have tested all the inputs, turntable, CD, my USB, and everything works beautifully. So I just thought I'd show it to you, and just to let you know that you know, you can still build, you know, a nice little system around some of these little less expensive amp. And like I said, the amp was not the main subject of the video, but I use it more or less to show you how to really connect up a system, and I hope you actually learned something. So this is the final look. I'm gonna play some music again. So yeah, here it is. All right, so that's it, guys. This video was a little bit long. I know it was quite long. It was quite long actually, but I hope you had the patience to kind of sit through it, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments and let me know, and I will do my best to answer your questions, right? Now, I'd also love to hear about your first stereo system and what it was like for you. Me personally, up to this day, I'm over 60 and I still love hooking up. I still enjoy hooking up audio equipment. I'm not saying I'm the best at it. I don't profess to know everything, because, you know, we are just in the hobby of this thing. We are not pros. But I think I have, you know, acquired enough knowledge and experience over the years to be able to kind of, you know, impart some of this knowledge to you. All right. So thank you for watching again. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And you know, until the next video, happy listening. If I forget to mention anything, let me know. If I tend to confuse you with anything, let me know. If I made any mistakes, let me know as well. But in any case, thank you so much for watching, and you know, it was a pleasure sharing this little video with you. And until the next video, you take care now.